California DA cares about the rioters' needs, so it's likely she won't care about yours or mine. Jacob Blake's father just might need his mouth washed out with soap. CDC announces plans for a COVID-19 vaccine that could roll out this fall, and Dr. Fauci chimes in. Of course, what would COVID-19 be without Dr. Fauci chiming in? Mm-hmm. And lastly, Bill Barr goes off on Wolf Blitzer. Ooh, welcome back to the Daily Facts. Let's get right into it. So, California's DA wants to take into consideration the needs of the rioters before she determines whether or not she will prosecute them. Isn't that special? I'm not sure I understand her, though. I don't understand this. So she wants to determine if they needed that Gucci handbag that they stole from the Gucci store, that they entered not through the front door, but through the window they shot out and ran into the store in order to steal the Gucci handbag. You can't make this stuff up. Let's see what she has to say. So this is from the New York Post. California DA's new policy to consider looters' needs before charging them. And this is the DA here, smiling up a storm. A California district attorney is requiring her prosecutors to consider looters' needs when weighing criminal charges against them. Now, if the roles were reversed, like I say, and it was you or me, we wouldn't get that luxury. And this truly is a luxury. I mean, I don't know, this is unheard of. Maybe it's the first time that we're hearing it. Maybe they've been doing these kinds of things for decades, but now everything, if you notice, is just coming to light. The lights are being shined on so much. So the new mandate set forth by Contra Costa County District Attorney Diane Becton, right here, makes it tougher to prosecute looting cases in the county, which sits just outside San Francisco, which we all know is where little Miss getting her hair washed, Speaker Pelosi, that's her district, I do believe. Investigators must now consider, was this theft offense substantially motivated by the state of emergency or simply a theft offense which occurred contemporaneously to the declared state of emergency, according to the policy reported by local outlet East County Today? Well, the operative word, in my humble opinion, is theft, and theft is theft. Theft is going into the grocery store, because this is how I think she's pretending to view this, going into a grocery store and stealing a gallon of milk versus shooting out the window of Gucci on the Magnificent Mile in downtown Chicago and running in and stealing a Gucci handbag, right? So, but let's keep going. In making that determination, they must also consider 5 other factors, including, was the theft committed for financial gain or personal need? Okay, it's still theft. The new policy comes amid the swell of protests, looting, and riots in the wake of police-involved shootings of Black people across the country. Right, ignoring the other people, like white people that may have been shot, or Asian people that may have been shot, or Hispanic. You get the idea. I mean, this is just, this is ridiculous, because like I say, the operative word is theft. Theft doesn't care. It's in the dictionary. The definition doesn't care about the type of theft. It just defines the word. And, you should prosecute accordingly. No, nobody said you should get 20 years for taking a gallon of milk, but it's still theft and there should be repercussions to it. Right? At least in my humble opinion. So, here it says looting carries a sentence of 1 year in county jail. Okay, so they're not even going to prison because there's a difference, you know. Prison is so jail is where you're held until you're either you go to court or they release you and you wait for trial and then you know, so it's a fun little place, right? It's not prison, a penitentiary where you're going there for years and it's the rules are a little different. Becton recently penned an opinion piece for Political magazine, along with four other DAs who are Black women: Satana DeBerry in Durham County, North Carolina, Kim Gardner in St. Louis, Missouri, Kim Fox in Cook County, Illinois. And we all know Kim Fox in this debacle of the Jussie Smollett case and how she dropped it. If you're interested in that, let me just take you back here real quick. I do. I break down that Jussie Smollett indictment, and this is a six-part series on that special prosecutor's report, and it talks about the wrongdoings of Kim Fox. But I somewhat digress. Uh, and Rachel Rollins in Suffolk County, Massachusetts. The article consists of 11 pieces of criminal justice reform that they say are designed to fix a flawed system that wrongly targets Black people and people of color. Hmm. All right. Well, Jacob Blake's father is in the news. Yeah, this individual here. And he probably never in his wildest imagination could believe he would be in the news for this, what we're getting ready to talk about. But he is. And I must warn you, it's disgraceful and he should be ashamed. So Jacob Blake Sr. has long history of racist, anti-Semitic, anti-Christian posts. And he was set to meet Joe Biden. And I don't know about you, but this looks like race baiter in chief. What is his name? Al Sharpton. That looks like Al Sharpton to me. And we all know what he does. Barana, what was the woman's name? Tolly. It was a mess. She claimed she was assaulted. It was a lie. It was years ago. I can't, it's not Breonna, I don't believe, because that's Breonna Taylor, I want to say, who was recently shot and killed by the police. At any rate, Google him and, you know, alleged victim who turned out to not be a victim. At any rate, let's continue. This is a Breitbart news article. And first, let me note from management, they said the fact that Jacob Blake's father appears to have a long history of bigoted social media posts has no bearing on questions surrounding his son's shooting by police in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Nevertheless, since former Vice President Joe Biden has decided to meet with him on Thursday during a visit to the town, his extremist views are newsworthy. I agree. Very newsworthy. So let's get into this. Jacob Blake Sr., the father of the man shot August 23rd by police in Kenosha, Wisconsin, appears to have a long history of racist, anti-Semitic, and anti-Christian posts on Facebook. Oh, he is set to meet with Democratic Party presidential nominee Joe Biden on Thursday. Blake Sr. has been a ubiquitous presence on television and at Black Lives Matter protests since his son, Jacob Blake Jr., was shot 7 times while allegedly resisting arrest. Well, if you're looking at the video, how is it alleged? I mean, if you see it with your own 2 eyes, okay, but we'll work with that. Blake Sr.'s social media posts, particularly on Facebook, reveal radical political views and extreme racist rhetoric. On Instagram, where Blake Sr. appears to have had a much more limited presence, he posted a video about the September 11, 2001 terror attacks. Man, I give a F about 9/11. He went on to cite the killing of 12-year-old Tamir Rice by police in Cleveland in 2014. Now, that's just shameful. I mean, if you have views like this, you best keep it to yourself, because honestly, you never know when they're going to be aired. I mean, granted, they were aired, but to this magnitude, I mean, now that his son has been shot and is handcuffed to a bed in a hospital, you had no idea that you were going to be trounced on like this. But this is what happens. It's funny how things that are done in the dark come to light. So on August 23rd, a post appeared on the Facebook page of Jacob Blake Sr. My son is alive and stable. A search through the other posts on that Facebook account reveals a timeline replete with bigoted statements. So let's look at these. Wow. A Jew can't tell me a blank period. That's just, I mean, and he's got it in red. The same pink toe Jewish people that control the interest rate, control the media, they control minds and money. Nobody controls your mind unless you allow them to. So evidently, first of all, you're grouping every single Jewish person and you're very accusatory. I mean, what's wrong with it? This is just, the Jewish media picks and chooses who is a terrorist and is not. I mean, where is he getting this? A cracker Jew can do whatever to a white woman for years, but let a jig try it. I mean, is he serious? Warning for Jews in Pittsburgh, no warning for gunmen in Kentucky. So he's talking about the shootings. How do you know that? I mean, the circumstances, here he's talking about the Black Leaders Summit and how they were crowded into the entrance to see President Trump. I mean, and it just goes on and on. I mean, he's just filled with vitriol. Okay, so we get the idea, right? We get the idea. So let's move away from this obviously disturbing information to something that may have governors concerned, right? CDC letter urges governors to prepare for coronavirus vaccine distribution in fall of 2020. So I'm sure you followed the press conferences that President Trump held with the doctors and the CDC leaders and all of that. And he updated us continuously, tirelessly. And he kept saying that we're going to have a vaccine by the end of the year. And, we as Americans, we are used to these things taking forever and a day, right? Vaccines don't happen overnight. At least that's what we're told. It takes years. So evidently, CDC says it wants to be ready for distribution by November 1st, right before Election Day. That's huge. So the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention issued a letter to U.S. governors alerting them to the need to prepare their states for distributing a coronavirus vaccine this fall. Several vaccine candidates have been in phase 3 clinical trials, with production ramping up in the event any of them are ultimately approved for use. The U.S. Department of Health and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention that's CDC, are rapidly making preparations to implement large-scale distribution of COVID-19 vaccines in the fall of 2020, the letter from CDC Director Robert Redfield, dated August 27, said. The vaccine distribution is expected to be a public health effort of significant scale, potentially involving hundreds of millions of vaccine doses to be distributed across the U.S. The CDC said they will be using the McKesson Corporation to distribute the vaccines to state and local agencies, medical facilities, and vaccine providers. To do this, the CDC noted McKesson has to acquire licenses and permits. Okay. So they are getting ready to push this out. This is fascinating. Now, Dr. Fauci, let's move from this to Dr. Fauci because he is out there letting people know who may be worried. Now, let me just, full disclosure, Dr. Fauci is not my favorite doctor. Okay, he's back and forth. Masks work, masks don't work. Go outside, go into crowds, be careful. I mean, he just, I'm paraphrasing here, of course. He doesn't make sense sometimes. But here, let's just move over to what he's telling us. So mandated coronavirus vaccination in U.S. Uh, unlikely, Fauci says. I don't think you'll ever see a mandating of vaccine, particularly for the general public, Fauci says. Well, it seems like it would be unconstitutional to make someone do something to their body that they don't want to do because the operative word is your, right? As in your body. Dr. Fauci, the nation's top infectious disease expert, I mean, he was at one time, I mean, okay, well, let's just keep going. Said on Tuesday he doesn't think an eventual coronavirus vaccine would be mandated for the public. I don't foresee that happening either, in my humble opinion. I don't see it. I don't think you'll see a mandating of vaccines, particularly for the general public, Fauci said in an interview with Healthline. Sometimes in the health sector, like in the hospital at the National Institutes of Health, for instance, someone without the flu vaccine would not be allowed on a given ward, he said. But he noted you would never mandate, at least I do not think you would. I'd be pretty surprised if you mandated the coronavirus vaccine for any element of the general public. I guess if we went back to this part here, sometimes the health sector, like in a hospital at the National Institute of Health, for instance, someone with the flu, without the flu vaccine would not be allowed on a ward. Okay, but then what else? I guess that makes sense. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, if you're going into a hospital, you definitely want to be respectful because people are in the hospital for what? Because they're sick. So you don't want to compound that with a flu or any other illness. So I respect that. That makes perfect sense. So Dr. E. Han Lee, Senior Director of Medical Affairs with Healthline, questioned a contingency plan for Americans who may refuse the eventual vaccine. They have every right to refuse the vaccine. I don't think you need a contingency plan, Fauci said. If someone refuses the vaccine in the general public, then there's nothing you can do about that. You cannot force someone to take a vaccine. I mean, and he knows he's been the infectious czar for years, right? So he's been in that world and he knows what is legal to do. According to an NPR PBS NewsHour Marist poll, 1 in 3 Americans will opt out of getting a coronavirus vaccine if and when it becomes available, while 60% of respondents said they will get vaccinated if one becomes available to them. 35% said they won't, despite a worldwide COVID-19 death toll topping 780,000, according to the results released Friday. The remaining 5% of respondents said they were unsure. Also in separate Gallup poll, more than a third of Americans said they would not get a COVID-19 vaccine right now, even if it was free and FDA approved. Well, Fauci says he remains cautiously optimistic in an eventual coronavirus vaccine because preliminary phase 1 studies induced a level of neutralizing antibodies in phase 1 volunteers that is equivalent, if not better than, what you see with the convalescent plasma of people who have actually recovered. That's not a guarantee, but it's a good predictor that things will go well. Okay. So there you have it. It's not going to be mandated. And I know a lot of people are concerned about that. People are afraid. Some people are afraid. Some people aren't. Right? So let's move on from Fauci to AG Bill Barr. He was on Wolf Blitzer's show the other day going off, as he should. about mail-in voting. Now, if you haven't had a chance to watch my video that included a frauder's breakdown and how he did it, I suggest that you go and take a peek. It's pretty fascinating. I mean, you know, who knew? Who knew? So this one here is it talks about a actual person who committed voter fraud, and he breaks, I mean, he's been in the game for years, and he breaks down the different ways in which you do it. And when you listen to it, you will completely understand how it is conceivable to do it, and it will leave little doubt. Let's put it that way. It'll leave little doubt. um but yeah, let's see what Bill Barr had to say to Wolf Blitzer about mail-in voting. I hope we don't get any of those commercials, and if we do, I apologize in advance, and I hope the sound is good. Sometimes it's not so great, but let's go ahead and play this.
Let's talk a little bit about what the president also said just a little while ago about North Carolina's absentee voting system. He said, and I'm quoting him right now, "So let them send it in and let them go vote. And if the system is as good as they say it is, then obviously they won't be able to vote." That sounds like he's actually encouraging people to commit a crime, to vote twice.
I don't think so. I don't, what do you think? I don't think so. I think there's probably some context missing, but let's keep going.
I'm sorry, you'll have to read that again.
All right, this is what he said. So let them send it in, the vote, the email, the voting by mail, and let them go vote the ballot. Let them send in the ballot, and then let them go vote. And if the system is as good as they say it is, then obviously they won't be able to vote. It sounds like he's encouraging people to break the law and try to vote twice.
Well, Wolf Blitzer, maybe that's your interpretation that you're putting out there to your viewers and potentially gaslighting them. But let's hear what Bill Barr has to say, because he's coming back strong.
Well, I don't know exactly what he was saying, but it seems to me what he's saying is he's trying to make the point that the ability to monitor this system is not good. And if it was so good, if you tried to vote a second time, you would be caught if you voted in person.
That would be illegal if they did that. If somebody mailed in a ballot and then actually showed up to vote in person, that would be illegal.
I don't know what the law in the particular state says.
You can't vote twice.
Well, I don't know what the law in the particular state says and when that vote becomes final.
Is there any state that says you can vote twice?
Well, there's some, maybe that you can change your vote up to a particular time.
Okay, there's that commercial. But while we're waiting for the commercial to end, A.G. Barr is the top attorney for the United States. I suspect he knows a little bit about this. Let's keep going.
Well, if you know what he's saying, why are you asking me what he's saying?
He doesn't believe in the mail-in voting. You're the Attorney General of the United States.
Why does you? Yeah.
He said if you expand mail-in voting, this is the president.
This is
it's reckless.
Well, this is a sort of cheap talk to get around the fundamental problem, which is the bipartisan commission chaired by Jimmy Carter and James Baker said back in 2009 that mail-in voting is fraught with the risk of fraud and coercion.
But since then,
and until this administration,
haven't proved it.
Let me talk.
Yeah, please.
And since that time, there've been in the newspapers.
Journalists, these news people on television are notorious for interrupting people and not wanting them to get their point across. So I'm glad that A.G. Barr pushed back and told Wolf Blitzer, no, let me finish. Let me make this statement, because I'm going to make sure that your viewers hear this case this point that I'm about to make. It's imperative that they do, because if I leave them hanging and not understanding, then, they're going to believe that President Trump is telling people to vote twice. It's ridiculous.
In networks, academic studies saying it is open to fraud and coercion. The only time the narrative changed is after this administration came in. But elections that have been held with mail have found substantial fraud and coercion. For example, we indicted someone in Texas, 1,700 ballots collected from people who could vote. He made them out and voted for the person he wanted to.
And that's just one example of how they do it. Like I say, the piece that I did the other day on a voter, a person who, it was his job. He had operatives working for him. I mean, the things that he did to flip, and it said in the article that these were top people that were getting in office. And we know top people are governors, mayors, right? Senators, Congress people, congressmen. So he assisted in that. That tells you that they're stealing elections. Let's continue with Bill Barr, because he's getting heated.
Okay, because that kind of thing happens with mail-in ballots, and everyone knows
but there are individuals cases, but as far as widespread fraud, we haven't seen that since.
Okay, if there are individual cases, how can you then go to, it's not, it can't be widespread? Well, there are individual cases to let you know that it exists, and the likelihood of it existing in every single solitary state is pretty high. It's not an isolated incident. Again, I go back to the piece that I did the other day. I do believe that was done in New York and Newark, but you can go read the article for yourself, and I do suggest that you do. Again, I'm talking about the piece that I did on voter fraud. It's unbelievable. But let's continue with Bill Barr, because this is getting good, right?
Well, we haven't had the kind of widespread use of mail-in ballots that's being proposed. We've had absentee ballots from people who request them from a specific address. Now what we're talking about is mailing them to everyone on the voter list when everyone knows those voter lists are inaccurate. People who should get them don't get them, which is what has been one of the major complaints in states that have tried this in municipal elections. And people who get them are not the right people. They're people who have replaced the previous occupant, and they can make them out. And sometimes multiple ballots come to the same address with a whole several generations of occupants.
Did you hear that? I mean, it's just so even everyday people can commit fraud and do this. I mean, I remember President Trump saying that there was a registration for a dog, a cat. So don't come at me and try to tell me that voter fraud is just this little problem. No. Fraud is a term in the dictionary once again. And there are bad people. There are good people in this world, and there are bad people, devious people who want to do bad things and who want bad people in office. And there's plenty of bad people in office that are making wrong decisions. There's plenty of incompetent people. I mean, we have Nancy Pelosi getting her hair washed in San Francisco, and nobody else can. And then she claims she was set up, even though that has absolutely nothing to do with anything. So is it that easy to manipulate you, Speaker Pelosi? Then you need to leave office. If you can be set up that easily, who's to say what else people can do and make you do? So you get the idea here with AG Barr. He's had enough. And I have had enough as well. So thank you for stopping by the Daily Facts. I hope you enjoyed. Please do consider sharing, subscribing, and leave a comment below. We'll talk again soon. Bye.